So I want to explain number 8 a little slower. It's a graphing parabola problem. It's a quadratic trinomial equation. It's in standard form. So the reason why I want to explain or spend more time on number 8 is because the vertex, when you calculate it, you end up with a fraction. So we already know that this is a quadratic trinomial that's in standard form. Our a value is 1, our b value is 5, and our c value is -1. So if we want to find the vertex, which is a coordinate, the most important point of the parabola, the highest or the lowest point of the parabola, we need to use a vertex formula. And when we use this vertex formula, we want to replace the b and the a with parentheses. And now let's actually plug in the b value of 5. And here's where we encounter the problem, because the b value is odd, right? If the b value were even, you'd be able to, most of the time, get a nice number for the x value. The a value is 1, so as you can see right here, we end up with a -5 over 2, and that is your vertex x value. Now, if you want the y value, you simply plug it in. So the vertex x value is -5 over 2. And of course, you could write this as a decimal. It's -2.5. Right? If you have $5 and you divide it in half, it'd be $2.50. And it is negative. A negative divided by a positive is a negative. So you could write the vertex with the x value as a fraction, or you could write the vertex with the x value as -2.5. And either way, once you have that x value, you want the y value. And how do we do that? We simply plug it in to the original equation. So let me rewrite my equation right here. But what I'm going to do is rewrite without x's. I want to write it with parentheses in place of x's. That way I could plug in my -2.5 right into those parentheses. Now it's totally up to you if you want to plug in with decimals or with the decimal value of -2.5, or you could plug in the fraction -5/2. It's totally up to you. And the comforting part about this is that you have calculators, right? So you could actually type this out exactly the way it is and plug in your -2.5 right in there. And type all that into your calculator. What am I talking about? All of this, obviously not y, just in parentheses, -2.5 squared plus 5, and then, you know, exactly the way it is with the calculator, and you should be able to get your answer. Let me show you. So I apologize, it's going to be kind of shaky. We're going to do parenthesis, and the parentheses right here. And we're going to type in -2.5, and there's and this calculator doesn't have a negative, so just put a -2.5 and then close parenthesis, and then we need it to be the second power. And right here there's a power of 2, so you could click that button, and then after that put plus, just like it is up here, plus 5 parenthesis and all that stuff. So let me continue. Plus 5 open parenthesis, -2.5 minus 2.5 again, close parenthesis, and then -1 at the very end, -1, hit equal, and you will get your answer -29 over 4. Now, if you want that as a decimal, there's a SD button right there. There it is, SD. Click that, and it'll give you the decimal -7.25. So all of this is done with the calculator, and we get the answer. Our y value is -7.25. Of course, all this could have been done with the fraction by hand on paper, but you guys are able to use a calculator, so you might as well use it. So our y value is -7.25. Okay, so this is going to get even more funky right here. Let's go to that vertex value. It's the most important point. So we're going to go from the origin. We're going to go -2.5 on the x, -1, -2, negative, and then 0.5, right? -2.5, -1, 2, and then halfway to the 3, to the -3. So I'm right here in the middle, and then I need to go down 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But it's not -7. It's -7.25. 0.25 is a quarter of the way down. It's not even halfway down. It's only a quarter of the way down. So let's put a dot right here. This is our vertex. Let me actually zoom in to make this dot. And that would be right here. It's kind of in between, and it's kind of 1/4 of the way down. What do I mean by that? It's in between and 1/4 of the way down, not halfway down, but 1/4. Okay, so that's our vertex. And whenever you draw your vertex, we draw an axis of symmetry right through it. So let's do that next. Now, if someone were to ask you what that axis of symmetry equation is, it would be x equals the x value of your vertex, which is -5/2, or you could say x equals -2.5. That's the vertical line called the axis of symmetry. Now, we need to graph this thing, so we need more coordinates. And the coordinates themselves are actually going to be pretty challenging because you're not at clean points. So what do I mean by that? You're not at the coordinate -3, -5, right? You're kind of out here in space, in decimal values and fractions, right? So when we look at the original equation, the a value is 1, which means that it really will have the pattern 1, 1, 2, 4, 3, 9, and it is opening up because that a value of 1 is positive. So you could go 1 over 1 up, but the problem there is that from the vertex, since you're not at a clean point, you're right here, and if you go 1 over, you're talking about 1 unit over, which means that you go from this halfway point to this halfway point, okay? And then 1 up would mean from this quarter location to this quarter location. So this would be your dot right here. So as you can see, that's kind of ugly, right? And then you'd go back to your vertex and you'd go 2 over 4 up. So you'd go 1, which would be right here in the middle, 2 right here in the middle, and then 4 up. But remember, you're at the quarter way up. So 1 right here, 2, 3, and we still need 1 more. So we'd end up with 4 right here. So we put a dot right there, okay? And like I said, this is still ugly. So you could use the pattern, but because the points aren't that great, it's kind of challenging. So you're going to have a multiple choice options to see where's your graph. Now, because I understand the pattern, I already know that it looks like that. I could mirror them over to the other side and I'll have my graph. But let me show you the quick and easy way of identifying your graph. Once you know this vertex, which again, we rely on the calculator to do all the hard work for us. Once you know that vertex and you know it's opening up, you're going to be able to narrow it down to maybe 1 or 2 possible answers. Now, the easiest way is to identify your Y-intercept. Now, remember, what is a Y-intercept? It's where it crosses the Y-axis. So here's the Y-axis, and we already know it's going to cross somewhere right here. And I'm assuming it'll cross right there based on the pattern that we have. But let's find out this Y-intercept algebraically so we could be very precise and know exactly and be confident as to where it crosses the Y-axis. So I hope we remember, how do we find an intercept? Well, to find the X-intercept, you set Y equal to 0 and solve. And right here, to find the Y-intercept, you're going to set X equal to 0 and solve. So if I look up at my equation, it's up here, y equals x squared plus 5x minus 1. That becomes a really easy situation right there, because when you plug in 0 for x right here and here, then 0 squared is 0 and 5 times 0 is 0. So this is all 0 and your c value is your answer. So the y-intercept is -1. That's your y-intercept right there. So what does that tell you? That it crosses the y-axis at -1. -1 is right here. Okay, so just by calculating your vertex and then by looking at your graphs and taking a look at the parabolas as to where they cross the y-axis, that will tell you, that'll give you the value that you're looking for when you find the y-intercept. And again, how do you find the y-intercept? You set x equal to 0. So it's pretty easy. Once you find your vertex, then you calculate your y-intercept. You don't even have to deal with the pattern. Just by it knowing that it opens up because the a value is 1, and just by knowing how to find the y-intercept by setting x equal to 0, which will make it your c value, you'll know where it crosses the y-axis. So if you know the vertex and you know it opens up and you know it crosses right here, you'll be able to identify your answer. Anyway, just for fun, let me mirror the coordinates over to the other side. Here we go. And the last one. Let me connect these dots. And there's our parabola. Now, some of us might be thinking, well, I'm going to mess up right here with this decimal stuff. Again, the calculator does it for you. And we do have two different types of calculators. I apologize. I explained with the Casio. You know what? I might as well go back and do this process once again with the Texas Instrument that we have, just so nobody gets confused. Okay, again, I apologize for the shakiness. So we're going to start. Here's the parenthesis button right there. Click that parenthesis button, and you're going to type in negative. Now, on this one, on this calculator, this is the negative button down here. Don't use the minus. So right here you have a negative button. So negative. And then you're going to type in 2.5, close parenthesis. Now you want the second power, and you have this x squared button. You could click it, and as you can see, it is the second power right there. And let's continue with everything else that it says right here, plus 5 and all that stuff right there. So plus 5, open parenthesis, and then again, negative 2.5, close parenthesis, and then at the very end, minus 1. We're going to put the minus, not negative, just minus, and then 1. As you can see, it's all typed in right there. Hit the enter button, and you will see that the answer is the same thing, negative 7.25. And that's what we have as the Y value. So there it is, guys. Finding the vertex, even if you end up with fractions or decimals, is a piece of cake. Why? Because we could use the almighty calculator, right? Anyway, I hope this eases your worries on this particular question where we end up with the fraction as the x value of the vertex. Just use a calculator, everything works out just fine. And again, once you find that vertex, find the y-intercept. How do you find the y-intercept? Set x equal to 0. That way you know where it crosses the y-axis. And just with that information, with the vertex and with the y-intercept, you'll be able to identify which is the correct parabola on the multiple choice test.